Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's social media forum. We are very excited about this topic, so we will go around to introductions.
Mainly because it's really questionable whether or not it's actually a social media. Really?
Yeah, that's what.
I mean, it gets lumped in with social media channels, platforms, but it's very arguable. So we'll go ahead and get started as we normally do with introductions. So my name is Kenney Newville, and I'm the owner of Newville Consulting.
My name is Natalie Newville. I do marketing for the library. So if we want to go around and say your name, what organization or business you're with, and we can come up with like another fun. Oh, okay, you're trying to help me out with that one. Your favorite donut, because if you're in the room, you got to eat donuts. So.
What's your first?
I know, it's easy.
Hey, Colton's first.
Yeah.
Colton Zirkle, Conservation Federation of Missouri, Education and Communications there, and my favorite donut is just regular old
I'm Brianna Murphy with the Pension Business Bureau. I do social media over there. I'm not a huge donut person, but if I eat one, it'll be a sprinkle.
Ashley.
Ashley Kenney, Chamber staff. My favorite donut, I love apple fritters, and I also like the filled Long John. I mean, I can go on. I love a good donut from Schulte's. Schulte's is the best.
Yes.
Wall, and my favorite one is Coke. I also love the burgers.
Alright, awesome.
My name's Amy Rogers. I'm with Council for Drug-Free Youth, and I would say I agree with Ashley. Anything from Schulte's, but I like the filled Long Johns, but they have to be like a Bavarian cream or a Boston cream or whatever they want to call it.
It's got to be the pudding for me, not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
white
yeah.
fluff. I
Mine-
don't like the white fluff.
Or the, I think the jelly either.
Or,
It has to
yeah,
be
the pudding.
Depends on the jelly though.
I can do jelly, but the white fluff stuff is too sweet. It makes my teeth.
I like Coke Jam. Okay, so, yeah. Okay, Stephanie, introduce yourself.
Okay, I can hear you guys, but you're pretty muffled. I don't know if you're using a different microphone or something, but I can hear for the most part. So I guess we're sharing who we are. Stephanie Lehman for CNS Business Services. In favorite donut, I guess, and I'm just the opposite of what Kenney, I thought, just said, that I like the ones with the sweet filling and the icing. Sweeter, the better.
Awesome.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's incorrect as well. Hey, Stephanie, how is Natalie coming up now?
Can you hear me now? Is it any better?
A little bit.
Kenny's messing with the mic to try to fix it.
Thanks.
Okay, let's see. Darcy, she may have just joined and doesn't know what we're doing. Okay, Christy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, it's Darcy. Well, I heard Stephanie, so this is Darcy.
You were kind of cutting out, Darcy. Sorry. Okay, Christy, do you want to?
Hi, Christy with TCS. Favorite donut, Boston cream, hands down, but it's got to be the cream filling, not that white crap. Ugh.
Okay. All right. I know what's going on.
Okay.
The Eddie is.
Oh.
We don't have enough USB devices. Oh, we're running a PowerPoint from the USB stick, right?
Oh, no.
Or from the desktop? Yeah. How's that, Stephanie? Is that better?
Okay,
Yes,
good.
that's
Okay, yeah,
much
no
better.
microphone. So, and that is an example of the difference between a bad microphone and a really good microphone.
Okay, Tiara, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Tiara Safir with Council for Drug-Free Youth, and my favorite donut would be a Krispy Kreme glaze.
Stephanie, can you hear Tiara? Yeah,
Yes,
so it's
it
us.
is.
Okay.
Okay,
Can you try again, Tiara?
Okay, my name is Tiara Safir. Can you hear me now?
perfectly. Thank you. That was on our end.
Okay, my name is Tiara Safir. I'm with Council for Drug-Free Youth, and my favorite donut will be Krispy Kreme's, the regular glazed donut.
Awesome. Okay, Megan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Megan Boston. I work for Hawthorne Bank. I kind of do marketing there, and then I also have my own calligraphy business called Magpie Mo Designs. Okay, I came in late, so what was the question?
Your favorite donut?
Oh, you can't go wrong with a Schulte's glazed donut.
Awesome. Okay. All right, I think I got everyone who's on there. So, okay, all right, make sure, like, all right. So, today, obviously, as you guys know, we're talking about how you can use Pinterest for your business, specifically as a search engine. And to kind of like put this out, so as we were trying to think about what topic we wanted to talk about this month, this one came up and it got brought up by some educators that we follow. And they were like, Pinterest isn't a social site, it's a search engine. And that just kind of like blew my mind a little bit because I've always thought of Pinterest as a social site. But if you think of it as a search engine and as a way to drive traffic to your website, it kind of opens it up in a very different way. And personally, like the library is going to really start utilizing this because I think that it's worth our time as marketers to use. So
Obviously, it started out with a very social heavy aspect of it, but it's kind of embraced its truest form over the last several years, even though it's still segmented in your app store as a social network. It's still generally sorted by your app desk as a social network. You probably still have it in a folder with other social networks, but Pinterest is really a fantastic search engine. And actually, I think the first slide. This is why you always test it, Natalie. You always test. I can't test it. You have to hear it. Not on. You're not on. There. Whoa.
So again, so I would like to just get like a raise of hands. Is there anyone right now who's using Pinterest as a search engine for your business or your organization?
Not for my business.
Right. Just in general. Yeah, personally. Okay.
Okay, no hands raised digitally.
Maybe tell them to speak out.
Okay, so these stats that we're using, they're a little old. They're from like 16 or 17, but it was the most recent I could find. So Pinterest is chosen by 60% of online users over other search engines. So I think that's huge. When you think about if somebody is trying to search for something, they choose Pinterest over Google or over Bing.
Just waiting for your position. All right, everyone, apologies. We are not in sync this morning. The marriage isn't working. So what is a fairly new stat, though, from a video I was watching that was posted about a month ago. Right now, Pinterest is suggesting that, well, they're stating that they have 500 million searches a day on their platform. Now, Google is in the tens of billions, to give you an idea. But still, 500 million searches a day is a fantastic starting point for you to have, for your clients and users to have free access to your information, and you're putting it out there for free as well.
With less competition.
Yeah, much less competition.
Everyone's trying to fight to be at the top of the Google search, but Pinterest isn't one that people are really fighting to be at the top of.
Right.
That was also interesting. 72% of those people are actually inspired to make a purchase just by looking. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people in the room that are with nonprofits, but you think about they're more likely to download your resource or make a donation.
Subscribe to your newsletter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity to think about a purchase as just what is the intended action that you want the end user to take. That's them doing that is them making a purchase.
They also report that more referral traffic comes from their website than any other social network. So again, and I think for those people that use Pinterest personally, thinking about like, when I get on Pinterest to search for something, it's usually something very specific, like maybe I'm looking for a new hairstyle, or I'm looking for a new mirror for my bathroom, or, you know, there's things like ideas and inspiration, but that pushes me then to really go to that website. There's people I've discovered and followed Pinterest.
And this is, again, another example of how Pinterest is more of a search engine and less of a social network. Think about how Twitter, Facebook, Instagram all work. They want you to click in. They want you to stay there. That's why Facebook has events. That's why Facebook has business pages, personal pages, all that stuff. And then you have to look in the bio to find that little link to go to your website. Pinterest clicks out. That's what they're trying to get you to do, click out. But once you do click out and find valuable, you're going to go back to Pinterest and you're going to pin that valuable information. And now that becomes evergreen content for the end user.
This I think is also very interesting, that the lifetime of pins on Pinterest that are so indefinite. So at the library, we have not been active on Pinterest for 4.5 years at this point in time. We still get right. I still pull stats for it, even though we're not pinning any new information. We still have regular traffic through our Pinterest site. After 4.5 years of not really using it, it's old stuff on there.
And that's because Pinterest, in my opinion, is really doing search engines right. It's not giving a value proposition to something based on age or based on necessarily popularity, although popularity does play a role, but not nearly as much as the dreaded Facebook algorithm plays for your organic posts. We all know that growing your audience with Facebook often requires ad dollars. It's your organic posts that may make it to some of your followers. But with Pinterest, you put something out there, you put a pin out there, and all of a sudden you're going to be getting results for the next 5 years or even longer potentially off of that same pin.
And like we said, it's a significant driver of organic traffic to your website. So, okay, what are some basics? Obviously, first you want to create your Pinterest business account. There's a couple different ways to do this. It's cool. Pinterest has finally created where you can toggle back and forth like you can for Instagram. Like I have my personal Instagram account, my business Instagram account, and I can toggle back and forth with them. So you can now also do that with Pinterest. But definitely make sure that you're doing the business account, because at that point in time, you get all the analytics, which is something that you're going to want as you go through it. I didn't.
I'm sorry. Life comes at you fast.
One important thing to note with the Pinterest business account, if you are running it for a organization or a business that isn't your personal organization or business, I would say set up a generic, like we have a Merle@merle.org email address. That way, if you leave, people still have access to it. They'll put it up connected to your personal account.
And that's something you should be doing with all of your social accounts. I can't tell you how many times, I think I even said this 2 months ago, prior to Shark Week, when we had Solar City. But I can't tell you how many times people call and they say, how do we get our account back? Because this person doesn't work here anymore, or we don't have access to the email anymore. So always create a generic marketing email you know you're going to have access to secure your platforms. And always go and get your business accounts on any platform, even if you think it isn't a big deal. You know, I mentioned that back in the day with the Parlor when it was becoming bigger last summer. You never know what's going to happen with these social sites or these different platforms, as I've already said.
Okay, and then obviously choosing an SEO-friendly username. So at the library, our Instagram handle used to be, it was weird. It was like Missouri, but the end of Missouri is RI and then it's river, so like they just dropped some of the RI, like.
Is it river?
Yeah, and so they all like mushed it all together and it was hard, I couldn't even remember it. So like making sure that your username is something that's easy to like, Newville Consulting, like it's not all these special characters.
Super basic. And as it pertains to SEO or search engine optimization, again, if you use the Missouri River example, Missouri River, nobody's searching for Missouri River. They might be searching for Missouri and river, but guess what? It says Missouri River. So the search engine is not going to think that that's, you might look at it and be like, that's really clever. The search engine is going to go, yeah.
And then optimizing your profile. So again, same with any site that you do, make sure your about you section's filled in, make sure you have a really high res company logo, organization logo. Especially for this, don't use a picture, like use your logo. If it's a business account, use the logo in this situation. And then you're going to create your board. So thinking about what content you want to share, but make sure that it's interesting and specific. So for example, you don't want the one that just says like business. Like maybe you're thinking like top business tips to help you grow, or like just thinking about how to be specific and creative so that it makes people want to explore that board that you're using.
Yeah. That's what I got.
Yeah.
You don't want to belabor the fact. Let me put it this way. If you're just checking boxes when you create any profile for your business anywhere and it's not inspired, think about how it's going to inspire the end user to actually click the thing that you're creating. There's no point in creating something that's generic that's never going to be clicked. So you want to make sure you have multiple eyes on it. If you can't think of great, examples of inspirational board names, then talk with some of your coworkers, talk with some of your customers. Maybe they'll provide you with some interesting branding, something that they were branding, buzzwords that they would.
And then obviously following people. Spend a few minutes every day just following new people that kind of fit into your realm. Whether it's in this room, we all follow each other because we're all from Jefferson City. Whether it's, like with Newville Consulting, we go follow other marketing agencies. Colton, you go follow your other groups that they have it, or people that, care about conservation, that kind of stuff. So just every day, just kind of, it will inspire you in the long run.
Well, follow your peers, follow your competition, follow the people that occupy the same space as you. If you have a business that sells a product, follow the products if they're on. With again, using Colton as an example, if you follow a bunch of outdoorsmen, you're going to see a bunch of interesting and unique content created by those individuals that you can either copy or you might be able to just bring into your umbrella. So it's important that you be intentional with the people that you follow, but definitely overfollow rather than under.
Okay, and then your website. So it's great to have your Pinterest looking strong, but if your website isn't prepared for it, you kind of lose the ability to take advantage of all the options it has. So obviously on every website, there's the social bar that you can add. Make sure you're adding that, but especially if you have a blog on your website, or if you have a section like where you embed YouTube videos, make sure that there's the specific Pinterest tag on there so people can pin it directly from your blog.
Well, and like it says, adding a Pinterest tag and setting up conversion events, it's the same thing you really want to do with almost any other, but any social site, or if you do Google AdWords or anything that you're going to be spending time and money in, you want to make sure that it's actually paying off. And so you'll be able to see what traffic from your website or to your website is coming from Pinterest. And is that traffic that's capitalizing? Again, it might not be they bought X, Y, or Z. It might be they registered for this event. They signed up for our e-newsletter, which ultimately, just put a pin in that, everybody should really have, because it's the only outlet that you control.
Put a pin in it.
I know.
It's like, come on, guys. Why not? That was funny.
All right, everyone up. The camera's over there. No, so it's the only, your email listserv is really the only messaging strategy that you truly control. You don't control Facebook, you don't control Pinterest, you don't control Google, you don't control the News Tribune. You control your email marketing list though. So you really want to think about having that as an integrated feature with all social and Pinterest.
Okay, and then verifying your site, there's a way that you go through and do this, because then it will add your profile picture to all your pins. So a lot of that's just like logistic stuff that you want to get done. Okay, and then obviously setting traffic and conversion goals. So it is such an effective lead generation tool. So you want to think about though, how is it fitting into your wider marketing strategy? So something that the library has been super focused on over the last year and a half has been our virtual programming, because for a long time we couldn't do it or people weren't comfortable with it. And I'm super annoyed that I wasn't using Pinterest to drive traffic to those virtual programs more. But now we're kind of going through our backlog, and that's one of our goals throughout the rest of the summer is to get all those virtual programs on Pinterest, because we can, the way it works with our reporting with the state is that it's an annual number. I'm like, all right, well, let's drive traffic to all these virtual numbers for the last half of the year. And then also thinking, does your target audience actually use Pinterest to find content like yours? But what is interesting with that is even if they don't, and some of this may not be 100% accurate, but like with Colton, like in my mind, when I think of your organization, I think of men who are hunting and outdoors, and they're not on Pinterest. However, I also know that you guys are outdoors, it's not just hunting. So are there people my age who are wanting to get into kayaking? Are they on Pinterest? Probably. I mean, I would just guess. So like thinking about what other audiences that you can't reach through your traditional methods, can you get connected with your organization through in a place where they already are?
I think you'd be surprised at the number of people that actually do use Pinterest. It's not sexy. A lot of people don't talk about it very often. You see it every once in a while, but for the most part, you know, it always surprises me. I think the last time that we did talk about Pinterest here, I think it was about 4 years ago now or so, and half the room raised their hand. Now we had more people in the room, so you know, different wider audience. But I think it's also important to point out that Pinterest accounts are also discoverable through other search engines. So for example, if you search for kayaks and CFM has a strong kayak board, it's very possible that Google search could yield that Pinterest account and that pin board. So it still does pull up other places.
And the other nice thing about it is like with kayaks, so you have this really strong kayak board, all of that content doesn't have to be your content. Like you push back to your website for some things, but you're putting other people's stuff too. You know, it's the same for Visit Jefferson City. Like there's a whole host of stuff that I feel like you guys could do on there. That's your content, other people's content, even things like travel tips. How to pack a great suitcase, like how do you pack for an overnight trip? You know, hacks in your hotel room. Like there's so many things that you guys could use that would make your Pinterest area a destination for travelers.
And I feel like along those lines, and I'll be quiet, because it's very recently, I had a client where they said that they didn't want to share the content of a competitor because they didn't want to put that competitor into their spot. Does that make sense? But here's the thing. What service are you providing to your followers or to the people that go to these boards? What you're providing to them is expertise, is inspiration, is, you know, interesting ideas, interesting images, interesting blogs. And so even though you might be pinning competitors or other brands to these boards, what you're providing is a well-established, comprehensive section of the internet that your followers can go to, and they rely on you to be the expert. You've created this place where all this information is there, and it's not just your information, but it's also good ideas from other brands. In this day and age, it's really important to, as a brand, recognize that if you have somebody outside of your brand that has a good idea that's pertinent to your followers, that you either want to really try your best as a business to either copy it and do it better, or you want to be able to bring it in so that you're offering a more comprehensive solution to your clients.
Okay, so once you kind of have this, you want to start analyzing your metrics. Impressions, traffic, repins, that's really where you want to start looking at to kind of see what it looks like and how it's going. And then conversions, once you have a handle on that. So in my mind, it makes more sense to really be focusing your time and energy on creating these pins and following people rather than super focusing on conversions at the beginning. But you'll get there eventually.
Or like we said, just make the convertible action so obvious and so everywhere that you simply know there are conversions coming from the content. For example, every page that you link to a pin should really have an opportunity, if you have an e-blast, for people to register for your e-blast. And that is a conversion.
So this is what the dashboard looks like with Pinterest, where you can kind of see all the different stats and what's happening over here. And it lets you mess with the data and that kind of stuff. It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so keyword research. So Pinterest curates their feed based on what a user is searching for and how those key terms are used in the pins. So for anyone who's used Pinterest, like personally, I use Pinterest a lot for like hairstyles, decorating, like that's just when I'm thinking about, oh, I want to decorate the room, like that's where I go look. So you want to make sure whatever it is that you are doing, that you're using keywords in your description so that it drives that traffic to it. The guided search is super helpful for that, and we have a picture of it on the next one I'm going to show you. But I would recommend that you use that guided search if you're trying to figure out what it is you want in your feed. So, for example, this is what a guided search is. So,
and just, you might not have known what it's called, but so many, if not all, search engines use guided search in some capacity today. And it's always a fun little game to play. It's like, what's trending today? Your tweed blazers and see what comes up.
Yeah. And so if you were trying to sell a tweed blazer, like I would, whichever ones fit with what you're doing, I would use those phrases in it. But you also think about like your CDFY, you guys think about prevention and that kind of stuff. Like what terms are people using to find those things?
Well, and obviously if somebody was to be searching for tweed blazers, and for example, if it's Natalie, different sort of search results than what I'm doing. So when you're creating your pin, being more specific will obviously produce less traffic to your site because I might not be interested in tweed blazers for women, but it's going to be more hyper-focused, so you're going to get more quality potential leads there. If, for example, Natalie is looking for tweed blazers for women, and then she clicks it, you know that she's looking for tweed blazers for women, rather than me, who goes to your site and I'm like, there's only tweed blazers for women. So it's, yeah.
The thought of wearing a tweed blazer right now sounds awful.
Think of it again like you're going from tweed blazers to tweed blazers for women. It's a lot more narrow.
Yeah. So then some other things that you're doing, your keyword research is exploring your topics, niche, everyone says it differently, like vendor binder, I think that word. So exploring all topics to see how the ideas are categorized. So again, like we visit Jefferson City, like not just thinking about how do we get people to come here, but travel tips, packing tips, road trip snacks, like all of those kind of things that make sense with your brand. At the library, we don't just talk about book reviews, we talk about programming and resources and homework tips and, all kinds of stuff. So also looking at your competitors and how they're targeting their specific keywords is super important. And if you think you don't have a competitor, like kind of keep thinking. So like the library, we are the only library in town, right? Amazon is one of our competitors. And we have to consider that because people buy their books from there, they get their ebooks from there. So that's who we look at as a competitor. Downtown Book and Toy would be considered a competitor. Other people who do programming, Riverside Amphitheater, they have big concerts. We don't have big concerts, but we have concerts. So just trying to think about people that do the same thing that you do, even if it's not a traditional competitor.
Well, and again, that's why I say peers, competitors, because you might not consider certain people a competitor, for example, with the CBD, but you might be looking at what other CBDs are doing. Those are peers in your space. Now, if they're local to you, if they're regional, then yeah, they're competition. Because if you're within driving distance of 2 different places, and you've got the better Pinterest board, and maybe you're the one that gets we get the visitors. So we're all rooting for you. But anyways, and then obviously, again, with the CBD, just using as an example, all the local businesses that provide awesome services and products that are available mostly in the Jefferson City area. That's a great board. So you have a JC Mo board. What's going on, here? So anyways, it's not just about competition. Think of it like that, but think of it like peers.
So this is an interesting way to do the keyword research where you just type in food and see what pops up. And then what's cool too is then you can also see these other categories up here at the top that auto-populate. So you can kind of close that and see. That just helps you think of board names.
Camping food.
I like the Halloween. I'm ready for fall already.
Well, and also photography. So if you have a restaurant,
yeah,
go on there and take a look at food photography and learn how to take better pictures of your food. A lot of people, they just throw the plate on the counter, they take a picture and move on. But is it appealing? Is it appetizing? Does it make people say, I want to go to Echo for lunch today? Because that burger is just a mess. Cold sweet spoon. I mean, sweet spoon's good too. We love sweet spoon. Take a look at that board though, and the one thing you're going to notice, it immediately jumps out to you. It's very, very visual. And that's the thing about so much of what we talk about in this room is that it's all becoming much more visual. There are entire social media networks dedicated to the picture. This one right here, that picture, images, moving images, whatever. Okay, so I mean, you probably didn't even read the classic burger recipe because you're too busy staring at those two stacked burgers. I mean, the pictures are what demand the attention. So make sure when you're putting posts up for anything, but especially here, that the imagery is on point.
Okay, so then you want to organize and optimize your board. So obviously it's really telling Pinterest how you categorize your products, how you organize your content. It's the first thing users see when they come to your profile, so it's important that they're there and they look good.
And that they're thematically correct. So don't have a board with something that doesn't fit the board's theme. Just create a new board.
High quality pins. So this is how this user chose to do it, where she kind of, with her image, she did an overlay so that people could see kind of what it was about. So they didn't necessarily have to read it down here. Thing, like they could see what each one was about very easily. The other thing to be thinking about as you're kind of creating this is like, what is your evergreen content? So like for the library, I'm not ever going to advertise our upcoming events on Pinterest because once that event's over, that does nothing. Unless it's a virtual event with the video where people can go watch it later. So you don't really need to advertise like if you have a fundraiser or an important meeting coming up. That's not what this is for. This is for that content that no matter when it is, there's still interest.
But again, it can still help you get the word out about those things if done correctly. For example, people are on Pinterest. They follow you because you have interesting pins. All of a sudden, they find themselves clicking through your website. Your website has that e-blast sign-up sheet, or what's your email address right at the bottom. They click that. Now they're getting your e-blast. So now they're hearing about your next event. They're hearing about your fundraiser. They're hearing about your new products. They're also seeing at the bottom of that e-blast, if you're doing it right, that you have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a Twitter account, blah, 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 blah. So now we're going to follow you in those places that they are. So anyways, it's all linked. It's all part of your marketing chain.
Okay, so you may have noticed that the Pinterest images are long and skinny. So here's kind of what it is. If you go in Canva, which is where most of us are making images, it's got a template for you. You can just use that. It's especially important on mobile, but they do display that size of image on desktop too, so they get more numbers of clicks, etc.
Yeah, the image that we just showed was
eye-catching colors, the title, fill in that last one where it has the enticing keyword-rich titles, that kind of stuff. Be descriptive. So I like the example at the bottom. Don't say SEO tips. Do 10 SEO hacks for more traffic. So just making sure that you're really using very descriptive titles.
Which now my laugh kind of comes full circle because earlier she said, don't use business, say business tips. And I was like, maybe 10 business tips.
Yeah.
You should use.
Yeah.
But Yes, I mean, that's the thing. Oh, and by the way, who doesn't love a good list? I mean, it's so annoying to go on a website and see like the top 10 reasons why you're gonna die early. But you're like, I gotta click it. I gotta click it. Lists are very
Well, and as a content creator, lists are easy to do.
Oh yeah.
Like they're much easier than like a blog. Lists are just, they're simple.
Yeah, you have number one, you have the thing, you have a nice image, and then you have a little like trite paragraph, not even about it, and then you go to number two. As opposed to actually having to flesh out a cogent idea on each one of those things.
Sure. Well, and when you think about like recipes, like it's an ongoing joke. But it's like, I just want the recipe. I don't need to know what happened when you were 5 years old to like inspire like the blogs that Ashley knows. She's like, like the blogs where like, it's like a novel and you go all the way to the bottom of the actual recipe.
But you know why that is, right?
Well,
It's SEO, because you're plugging so many different words into that narrative to get to grandma's 7-layer bean dip.
Be descriptive. There you go. So this is, I think, important to think about as you're creating content is how is it going to benefit your audience? What are they going to learn? What sets your product apart from your competitors if it's something that you're selling? And sometimes I think as nonprofits, because I know we've got a lot of nonprofits in the room. With nonprofits, it's hard sometimes to think of it this way, but just thinking about the resources you provide or how you improve somebody's life or the interesting information you have. Think of that, like how is that helping your person? You know, even CNS business services, like I could definitely do all interview tips. What to wear to your first interview, questions you should ask. Like there's all kinds of things that you could use in that work in that area, even if it's not necessarily someone who's going to use your service right then.
Yeah, it's not exactly what we provide necessarily on a day-to-day basis, but it's very related to what you do. So, you know, having that out there is going to build your brand's knowledge.
Ideally, you want to do a couple of sentences, about 100 characters in total for your. So here's an example of what it kind of looks like. So obviously you can see in the image, it tells what it is. It gives a little bit more. It also repeats it here in the title. It gives a little descriptor there. So that's just kind of how it should look. Or so you can tell that for the board that she's doing is how to start a blog. Very specific on that. Okay, and even though Pinterest is not necessarily a social media account, you do want to engage, obviously, that's what we all do for all of these things. So make sure you're linking it to your other social media accounts because you want people to be able to find it from other areas. The text as an overlay on your images is a really great way for people to be able to see it and grab it. Using Canva to create multiple pin images. So you can do that when you create it. Maybe you have several, like one is it with the words, one is it with the food if it's a recipe or whatever the product. So just kind of using it to create several of them. Make sure you're putting on a consistent basis, follow relevant boards, and then obviously tracking your performance is super important.
But I would argue that really tracking performance is, don't get into the weeds of tracking performance and setting up, you know, conversion pin or triggers, all that stuff. Don't let that keep you from just starting your Pinterest. I talk about that frequently. I mean, if you're going to put a lot of money into it, that's one thing. If you've got the bandwidth in-house, you've got a marketer, if you're paying someone to do this, then yeah, by all means, it needs to be firing on all cylinders day one. But if you're just doing this as a small business, just start putting your boards together. Start putting content there. Because here's the deal. If you don't have boards and you don't have your content on those boards, you're not getting traffic to Pinterest. But if you do, you are. And so at some point in time, you might say down the road, hey, this has really been fun. We've heard a lot about this. Now we need to start tracking it and trying to really monetize. But don't let that complicated mess get in the way of you just starting with it.
So this is what it looks like whenever you're on there. You can kind of see all the different boards. They type in SEO, and it kind of pulls up everything. So you can just see how different people kind of do it different ways. So what I like to do is go and look at it and be, okay, which one of those catches my eye the most? And then that's something that I would replicate as I'm trying to create our own pins. I thought there was more.
I say you started squinting, I'm like.
So I think that with that, Pinterest is one of those things, I think it's interesting because we're always like, focus on Facebook, focus on Instagram, let's tell them where your audiences are. But when you kind of remove Pinterest as a social site, and it is something that you can do and has with like evergreen reach, it will keep building, people will keep using it. And there's just so many opportunities to engage with new followers, find new followers, find new customers. So, and then there's also the way of using it ourselves. So like going on there and like for me, searching out other libraries, searching out other bookstores, like looking for ideas that other people have. There's a lot of benefit to it.
Well, and maybe Pinterest is one of those things where if you've already got a blog or you're posting regularly and those posts are not dated, they don't have a sunset, then why don't you just create a pin off of every blog you have, send people to your website. It doesn't need to be totally fleshed out. It just needs to be kind of out there. You know, like Natalie said, we talk a lot about making sure that you have your brand on as many different platforms as possible, simply so you own your brand name on the platform. But you know, if you're struggling to stay above water with Facebook, then maybe Pinterest is not, you're not ready for Pinterest. I consider this kind of to be like the next level simply because it is a lot more niche. But again, it's something that you can kind of, once you get established on it, you can just add to it infrequently and it will still provide value, still provide the benefits. So it's not terribly. Now, when you start to use it, you want to improve your game. Actually, I'd argue that Pinterest becomes a little bit more complicated, but you know, just to get into it, it's not that. Don't overthink it.
Any questions? Yes.
I never thought of using this for my business as a service business. I only use it to look up decorating ideas for how to remodel something.
Right.
So I was curious, coming today to see if there was an area.
I could definitely see, again, if you have the time and you're trying to push people to your website, using it where it's like tips on how to care for somebody, or you know, how to make your home safe for somebody in a wheelchair, or you know, those kind of things where it gets people's attention for people who are searching for that kind of stuff, and then pushes them back to your website if they have a service that they need.
Well, and sometimes, well, actually a lot of times, you really want to lead your potential client. So like maybe what you say is, you know, the top 6 questions to ask your parents' caregiver, you know, before you hire them. You know what those questions are. You know what those answers are, hopefully. And so you got to, you know, that's where you're like telling people, you're telling people, you know, something that they don't know, that they go, yeah, I need to ask this, you know, and so you're.
Or like when you need a caregiver.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the top 5 times when you need to.
The signs
Yeah.
that your parents need a caregiver, or something like, you know.
Or even things, you know, we've talked about, my coworker who was asking me if I knew anyone who did not 24/7 care, you know, because they were trying to find a place that like someone who was supposed to sit with them, like hard with them, do their laundry. So, you know, thinking about, you know, the different types of caregiving available. So really focusing on like those questions or those needs that people maybe call you with, and how can you answer those questions online first?
Darcy just said a glazed donut.
Yeah.
But she didn't just say that.
Do we know what the demographics of Pinterest look like? What is their audience?
You know, I did not pull that up. I would guess that it's female heavy, if I had to guess.
So if I want to expand on female membership,
It would be a good place for you to work on. For sure.
then, so do I want to share posts that are more timeless? Like I don't want to share something that's like an event or like a legislative action or.
Right. I would do, unless it was something like the top 5 ways to be an advocate for conservation. Like that kind of thing, I think is good to share, but if it's specific, like we need you to call your legislator by 5 p.m. on Friday, that I think, because then it's dead and it's not really valuable anymore. And it's also important to think about, so like when Kenney was at Whaley's, a lot of the places where they marketed or the things they did, even though obviously men take medication, they marketed a lot to women because women are the decision makers in that. And we're the ones who were like, you were sick, go to the doctor, you take your medication, blah, 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 blah. So thinking about that too, like, even if women are on there, but maybe there's stuff that, you know, like cycling stuff. I mean, I see cycling stuff all the time. I do not ride a bike at all, but I send it to Kenney because I see it. So, and then the more I engage with it, the more it's shown to me.
So by the way, this is according to Hootsuite. I went ahead and just looked it up. Monthly international user figures grew by 46% in 2020. So Pinterest is a growing platform, but 60% of users are women. And while Gen Z users is growing, it's mostly women aged 25 to 34 that they represent 30.4% of Pinterest ad audience, but a lot of other categories, a lot of other categories are what make up that. So even though I say it's mostly women aged 25 to 34, that's just the largest demographic.
You know why that is? It's because those women are getting very categories. And you look at Pinterest for like ideas and making ideas and tips. I almost guarantee it. But thinking about that, so, thinking about like the CDFY, like mocktails for your celebration. So that might be geared more towards teens or that kind of stuff, but it would also push those people that are looking for it.
Yeah. And here's a big one too, and this is kind of unrelated to what we were talking about, but I've mentioned this several times in this room, especially over the last year, but 8 in 10 Pinterest users say the platform makes them feel positive. And that's good. You want your brand to be associated with positivity, especially after the last year and a half, where we've had political unrest, we've had global pandemic. I'm not going to continue, but you've lived it. Positivity is something that people escape to. And so that could be one of the reasons that Pinterest is growing as fast as it is, that positivity, but also that very task-oriented, project-oriented mentality that a lot of the people pinning and a lot of the people repinning all have. There's one more donut comment. All right, so Darcy wrote that during the that was oh, it did. Okay, so I wasn't crazy. Yeah, it didn't send until she got home. Okay, good. Didn't see y'all up there before. All right, thanks, guys. Obviously.
Next month we're gonna have another guest speaker who's gonna talk all about reels. It's like 30 reels in 30 days. All the tips and tricks on how to do it.
She's a local and regional influencer.
She is. I would definitely consider her an influencer in our community. So I'm very excited. Also, we don't have to send another.
So you're welcome.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Was it on Zoom?
Yeah.